Hello, welcome back to the channel, everyone that's tuned in. American Ultra Stock. Here we are, Braden and I, talking about the transfer window. The MLS transfer window is here. It is the winter window, so granted, a lot of players are not available. They're mid-season, but we see right now there's a lot of action already happening. A lot of clubs trying to prepare for the season, make that marquee sign, that DP signing. And this is what we're going to discuss today. DP signings that are available or not, or would be pursuable by some MLS clubs and that they could benefit from. Braden, straight to the point, who's your first DP that you think would make a good player for any team in the MLS?
So my first player is going to come out of the Brasileirão because there's been a lot of South American focus in MLS over recent years, signing players from Brazil, from Argentina, from really all over South America. And we just saw Gabriel Peck be signed from Vasco da Gama to LA Galaxy for a big fee, the winger, the 22-year-old winger. And the player I'm picking actually has identical stats to him last season, is Yuri Alberto from Corinthians. I think the striker would be a pretty good fit in MLS last season. He's basically a carbon copy of Gabriel Peck when it comes to the stats. He's 22 years old, just like Gabriel Peck is. Scored 8 goals, got 3 assists, the exact same goal contribution numbers as well. And if Gabriel Peck is going for so much money, as he should, I think he's a really good player. But honestly, I think LA Galaxy could pursue this as well. It's a lot of money to splash out on 2 players, I know, but LA Galaxy are one of the biggest clubs in the league. They haven't ever showed hesitation to go out and buy big names. Not that he is really too big of a name right now, but I think he could be in the future, just shown that, given the potential that he has shown, and having a nice little Brazilian link up in the forward line. They do need a striker because Chicharito has moved on, one of their biggest DP signings over the past couple of years. And they have a spot open for him. I think that would be a good destination, but honestly, I think a lot of clubs in MLS could use a striker. We could even see FC Cincinnati making a move. They did sell their last Brazilian striker, Brenner, for 10 million to Udinese, so it proves that the pathway to Europe is there, which would be definitely intriguing for Yuri Alberto, because obviously that's probably his end goal, to make it to Europe, as most players are. They also sold Brandon Vasquez, so they are in need of a striker. They signed Corey Baird from Houston Dynamo, but that's not really too much of an improvement. It's definitely a downgrade. They need a new striker if they want to continue to tend for an MLS Cup. So I think Yuri Alberto would be a good signing for either of those clubs, but honestly, so many teams in MLS could use this player.
Yeah, Yuri Alberto is very intriguing. For a lot of people in Brazil, they think that he's the future 9, which I really doubt it. But anyways, Brazil is lacking that position, and a lot of them think that he's a mean player, because I will say there are times where he strings 5 or 6 performances that are horrendous. He reminds me a lot of Pato. He's very chic on the ball. I don't know how to describe it really. Very silky, very good technical player. But at times it's very funny really how he plays. But I agree with you. I think that the Galaxy, it would be interesting if they sign him. I think it would be a great signing because it has resale value, obviously. And he has actually he had a brief stint in Zenit and here in Europe, and he played really well there. But because of the war, he went back to Brazil. And I think that people will definitely, when people in Europe, the scouts, they will definitely remember that. So he has a lot of resale value, and I would love to see Galaxy switch their focus from, let's face it, old kind of washed DPs to young ones that you can actually resell and win something instead of just selling jerseys and bringing tickets in. So I think it would be a good signing. My next player, well, my first player, is also a striker. You mentioned Cincinnati, you mentioned Galaxy. I see this player would be a great fit for both. I picked him specifically for Galaxy, German Cano. We see this guy's a baller, really. He's a baller. And the fact is, I picked all of these DP options that are under 10 million market value. So there's no excuse really for some clubs to not sign them. And Cano, he's coming to the end of his contract too. He's definitely going to renew it or be sold. And typically in Brazil, they renew this contract so you can put a new clause and then you sell the players. So renewing contracts doesn't mean much. We saw it with Johnny, for example. He renewed in June and then got sold. It's just to add some value, and there's no negative equity for the resale. But I think that German Cano would be a baller. He would destroy the MLS, really. He is a baller. What a player, really. He's already over 30 years old, but guaranteed he has 2 or 3 years at the top level. Well, for MLS in Brasileirão, not Europe level, but he would be a great forward. He has a really good spirit, really. Even when he played for Vasco, he played in a relegation battle for them. He has a lot of character. What a player. He's one of the main reasons, I will say the main reason why Fluminense had a good season and won their first ever Libertadores. Under 10 million, I think is a bargain. Any club should get them. But now, moving on to the next player, Braden, who is it?
Yeah, I don't know if this next player would actually be a DP, just given the hesitation for clubs to give these DP options to goalkeepers. But I had to pick an American in here coming back to MLS. We've seen what the Colorado Rapids have been doing this January transfer window, bringing a lot of failed USMNT European players, we'll say, back to back to the MLS with Georgi Mihailovic, Zach Steffen, Sam Vines. It's actually unfortunate that they signed Steffen because my player Ethan Horvath is actually from Colorado, so I think it would have been a nice homecoming for him to go back to the Rapids. It would have made perfect sense, but now that they do have Zach Steffen, I think he should probably pursue a different club. But he does need a move. He's not even registered for the Nottingham Forest squad behind Matt Turner and Black Orimos, and he needs to transfer somewhere. The championship has been an option for him, but honestly, considering what some USMNT players have been doing, coming back to MLS, I don't think it's a bad option. Continue to grow the league. Josh Cohen, for example, signed for Atlanta United recently, coming back from a stint in Israel when he was playing actually in the Champions League. So I think he could follow Josh Cohen's footsteps. I can't really think of a specific club. A lot of clubs have very mediocre goalkeepers. The Revolution would have been a perfect fit, honestly, considering their development of keepers. But they did recently sign a starter, so I don't think that's going to work out. But there's a lot of playoff clubs, honestly, that have very subpar goalkeepers. I mentioned Houston Dynamo when I talked about Corey Bird. Maybe they could be an option. Steve Clark doesn't impress me too much in goal. So maybe them. They had a very, very exciting team winning the Open Cup. So yeah, now that I think about it, I think the Houston Dynamo would be a really good fit. But Horvath definitely would be one of the top 10 goalkeepers in MLS immediately. And I think it makes sense for all parties to bring him back.
Yeah, plus it's in Texas, so he can buy a mansion there. But I think it would be a nice move. I think he kind of finished. He already finished the championship. He has done it twice, really, and the guy's above that level. It's just sad, but I think you're right. If he's not going to get a chance in the Prem, why even take it a step back in Europe? Just try to help the league. And he is, I think, a big enough game. He has the USMNT, an international player, label to him. Maybe he'd be a DP. My next player, well, again, I'm mentioning a South American, and this is Cincinnati Galaxy, one of these clubs that needs a forward. They just need to make the dreams of every South American come true and bring them to the U.S. And before I get canceled, I am from South America too, so I have the right to say that. I will say Gianluca Lapadula. I think that he would be a perfect replacement for Brennan Vasquez. He has said in the past that he's kind of done with playing in Italy. He is at Cagliari right now, kind of faking an injury, let's be honest. He's always fit for Peru, but always injured for Cagliari. So I'll be honest, I think he's just faking it at this point. He always spends his vacations in the United States, so clearly loves the place, like every South American. And Cincinnati, I think they will need a good player. He's only 32 still, plays for Peru, wants to play in the Copa America, wants to have a good career there, says he wants to take them to the World Cup, so clearly has ambitions, needs to be playing at a club level. I think a step back for a player like this would be perfect, and I don't mean to disrespect MLS, but the scheduling, the time off is very attractive to some players that want a little bit of an easier time, and especially the pressure. Lapadula took Cagliari to Serie A single-handedly last season, so he has shown that he has really, really good level. I think that he fits well. He's, in my opinion, an improved version of Vasquez. Really cheap player, under 5 million evaluation, so I think it'd make a lot of sense. He could fit into Galaxy or any club really that needs a striker, and the fact that he has been coming to the US a lot of times, I think the visa process would be a lot easier as well. Now, who's the next DP player? What do you think about that option too? But who's the next player that you're picking, Britton?
Neymar said it himself. The scheduling purposes for the MLS are very attractive to older sort of players like Lapadula would be. But yeah, like you said, he still wants to play at a high level. I think strikers seem to be the number one option for DPs, which is why my next player is another striker. Again, I'm not sure if he would be a DP just due to the lack of name recognition, but Matthias Kvistgarden, a 21-year-old striker for Brøndby. I know a lot of people probably won't know who he is, but let me introduce him to you. He has 5 goals and 7 assists so far this season in Denmark's top flight with Brøndby, who are currently second in the table just behind Midtjylland, and the pathway is there. Hani Mukhtar, former MLS MVP, came from Brøndby to the MLS after a decent stint in Europe. Mikael Uwa, obviously I'm a Union fan, the former Brøndby striker, also came here. Andreas Maxo, the center back, went to Colorado Rapids. The pathway is there for Brøndby players to come to MLS. And honestly, vice versa as well. We've seen Brøndby have some Americans. Christian Kappas was with them for a while. He's out on loan now. Justin Che is the same. They signed him over the summer. Obviously, a U.S. youth national team player, former MLSer with FC Dallas, also out on loan, but both of them still belong to the club. The pathway is there both ways. And I think Kvistgaarden would be a really, really good player for MLS, and especially for the resale value. He's going to have a career in Europe, a very good one. Celtic are already interested in him, but not a lot of big clubs have come knocking yet. So I think if an MLS team could get him and discover him, develop him before a European team is, the resale value could be really high. So I think any team that needs a striker, any team that has a good, exciting youth project, I'd love him in Philly, working with a former Brøndby player in Mikael Uwa up top. That partnership would be so fun to watch, honestly. And especially considering our striker Julian Carranza has European interest and will probably be leaving either at the end of the season or in the summer. I think that'd be a good spot for him. We do have a track record of being very good at developing players, not being biased or anything, but if you look at the Union, the signings that we make, they're always under the radar type players like this. So I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Union. But again, like I said, for my previous player, Yuri Alberto, a lot of MLS teams could use this player.
Yeah, I think it would be a great fit, and I think it definitely fits more into the Philly type of project than a lot of other clubs. If it does happen, that's a great signing because it's a player, like you said, there's a lot of resale value. And I love to always remind my family members that don't watch MLS or try to underplay anything U.S. soccer related that Almiron came from the league, and they're like, oh, okay. And I think that that's a good signing. Very creative shout. I don't think that it would be a DP really just because of the name purposes, but nonetheless, it could be a great signing. My next, I've gone for a bit of flashier names here. This is not, let's say, a big name. I've gone for De Roon from Atalanta, and I think that LAFC could use him. He's 32, so he's not that old. He's always playing really well for Atalanta. I think that he will finish the season there. I think it will be a summer signing, if anything. But if Bouanga wants to leave, they will need that sort of player that can really spark the attack, be versatile in the midfield as well. I think that Matthias de Roon would be a perfect player, really. He has performed at a really high level there. His wage is honestly very doable. I think that LAFC could definitely do more than 60K a week. I think they could. And especially if he's going to be a DP, if they're going to lose Bouanga, they are a team that always has some big names. They're going to lose Vela as well, and they always want to win. That's all what they're all about, just trying to win trophies. So I think that this would be a great signing. Not really a huge name, but a name that I think is big enough for a DP contract and definitely better than a lot of options that they are looking for. So I think this would be a good fit. And it's the first non-striker, although he is in the attacking part of the field, first non-striker that I mentioned. But don't worry, I'll get back to the strikers right after that. Now, who's your next pick, Braden?
So my fourth pick is going to be a center back because, as we've all probably noticed by watching MLS, the defensive abilities are a lot lower in the league overall than the attacking ones, which is why the strikers are always the DPs. They're flashier names, more exciting, sell jerseys, and just honestly make the league better, more fun to watch. MLS is one of the most fun leagues to watch, I think, in unbiased opinion, just because of how many amazing goals there are. But at the same time, if we want to become more of a better league, we need some better defenders. And I think a perfect one would be Callum Chambers. He's currently at Aston Villa, but not playing. He's looking to move this window because he's fallen out with Unai Emery. I think actually managed Chambers at Arsenal as well. So I'm not sure what the connection there is, but he wants to leave Villa, and I think MLS would make sense. He's 28, so he's in his prime. He has a lot of good years left, and especially at MLS level, I think he could be here and be one of the best defenders in the league for 5-6 seasons, honestly, even into his mid-30s. I think a team that would really be good for him would be the Columbus Crew. Obviously, reigning MLS Cup winners, but their defense was lacking a lot last season. They only won it because of their amazing attackers. Like we said, it's the embodiment of MLS. Good attackers, very subpar defenders. But if they could shore up the back with a player of Chambers' quality, he's still a Premier League quality player, but just not playing right now for Aston Villa, who has to be said one of the best teams in the Premier League this season. I think Chambers really helped them out, and I think he'd make the Crew contenders for the next 5-6 years to come.
That is a great shout because, as you said, honestly, I've always liked Chambers. Even though he was a right back, I thought he was a good player. When he became a loan merchant, he was also a good player. He was a loan merchant, but what a good defender he is. Very versatile. Even played a defensive midfielder when he was at Borough for a stint when they were in the Premier League. I think he has always performed well. I think he has always gone under the radar at Arsenal. So you're right. He doesn't really, I doubt that he has any aspirations of making the England squad. So honestly, it could make a lot of sense if he goes. That's a great shout, and definitely a DP worthy contract. You're right. I think that up until his 34 or 35, so almost a decade really of him in MLS, it could make a lot of sense. So my next player, as I said, I'm going back to the forwards. They usually get to DP contracts. It's the theme of the league really, and it's another South American and making his dream come true, coming to the US, and Duvan Zapata. He has been a loan merchant, a true loan merchant from Napoli, has always been loaned to Atalanta for most of the time. So he made part of that Champions League squad that had a deep run. Now he's at Torino. He wants to get back into the national team scene for Colombia. He's a good forward, 32 years old, under 10 million euros. So definitely a good DP option there. So he's scored lots of goals. I think that he's actually a really good fit since he wants to replace him for Vasquez. But I actually picked him to go to Philly, really. I think that he would be a great shot of experience there. Really versatile player. The people who have watched Zapata play know he's a really good player. Really, he's a baller. And even for Colombia, he has always done well, but he's always with injuries now. And it's always just fatigue injuries. So he has complained, has said that there are too many games in Italy. Well, we've talked about this. MLS scheduling is very attractive to some players that are over 30 years old. He's 32, so still would have some good years left. Very fast player, even with his age. He's a very fast and very physical player, but also silky on the ball. What a good finisher Zapata is. I think that he's a great option. And honestly, he could leave in January. So he has said that he would leave if Torino wants to release him. So honestly, he's thinking about going to South America. Some Brazilian clubs linked to him. Why not just go to MLS? Honestly, I think that'd be a better fit. He would definitely take that offer over going to live in Brazil. So I think Duvan Zapata, a great option out there for a DP. Now, who's your last player who you think would make a great DP for any MLS club, Braden?
I'm not sure if Zapata would really fit the Philly system. We don't really like to sign big names or older players in general, but it would be a nice little bit of experience. I do agree on that. I think he'd be really good for any MLS club. I mean, we've seen how good he is in Serie A over the past several years. And my last fifth and final player is going to be a bigger name because I feel like a lot of the players I mentioned, some of them have been under the radar. A couple of them have been just like solid names, but I'm going to go for a world superstar here, or at least he was, Roberto Firmino. The Saudi League has had some reports recently that a lot of the players who joined it over the summer regret it and want to leave. And I think Firmino is at the age where he is going to be playing in sort of a retirement league sort of thing, like Saudi Arabia, like Brazil, like the USA. And I think coming to MLS would make sense. St. Louis City were interested in him initially when he initially wanted to leave Liverpool. He ended up going to Saudi Arabia instead to get the money. But I think St. Louis City would still make a lot of sense. They're looking to sell Nico Giacchini, their main striker, to a Serie B or somewhere in Europe, but Como are interested in him. And I think if he leaves in particular, Firmino would make perfect sense. He has links to the club already. I think their sporting director and him know each other from his time before Liverpool. So I think overall he'd make perfect sense for St. Louis City. It's still only their second year this season. So they're a very young club, a very ambitious club, finished top of the Western Conference in their first season. And I think they need to be trying to make the next step and contending for the Western Conference title and for MLS Cup. And I think Firmino would really help them do that because he is still a very, very good player.
Yeah, and I know for a fact he would love to come to MLS because he said it himself that he doesn't envision himself finishing his career in Brazil because of the living conditions. He says that his family, none of his kids lived in Brazil, so they just go to visit. And you look at his interviews, the man somehow forgot how to speak Portuguese. It's very weird, honestly. So he has, yeah, it's insane, really. You watch Firmino, I don't think he has a first language anymore. He has an accent speaking English, speaking German from his time in Hoffenheim, and he has an accent speaking Portuguese too, so that's very odd. But I think that it would be a great move for him. And just to defend, similar to with St. Louis, I think that I'm going to defend my Zapata shout. I think Philly needs something to get them over the line. And I think that Firmino will do something similar to St. Louis. Experienced, good, proven career in Europe, maybe helps them get over the line. But it's still really early on in their project. If they do make this signing, it's a great one. It's their first real marquee signing. Now, my last player, I've been hoping that somehow someone signs this guy, Roger Guedes. I think that he's insanely talented. What is the guy doing in the Qatarian league? He absolutely destroyed the Brasileirão every time that he played there. If it was for Atlético Mineiro, Palmeiras, Corinthians, he gets double digits every season. And what a great player, really. And similar, he left Brazil because he wanted better living conditions. I don't know if he gets that in Qatar. Maybe. I think Qatar is a little bit more loose with their restrictions, but I think this guy would make so much sense. He's only on a year contract in Qatar, so he's going to be a free agent this summer again. This guy, 27 years old, honestly could have some resale value, at least to Brazilian sides. Yeah, they like to splash the cash on players that have been previously successful there. So Roger Guedes, someone sign him. Honestly, whoever signs him is going to have, in my opinion, the best player in the league. I think that Roger Guedes could, if actually playing, I know that Messi is a bigger name, but playing in the league with the way they would perform, the best player in the league, apart from Messi and Suarez, definitely the best one. So, and their season's done there too, so he could be available right now, but he would probably be enjoying his vacation. But other than that, other than the DPs, are there any other players that you think would be good fits or realistic signings for any clubs that you think may be needing? You can mention the union as well if you think that there are certain parts of the field that you would like to see some specific players coming in, Brayden.
I just want to respond to the Roger Guedes transfer. I had him on my list, but when I saw that he had moved to Qatar, I took him off. But he has been tearing up the league. 8 goals, 4 assists in 12 games for Al Ryan. And like you said, he's such a good player. I think he would be one of the best players in MLS. Any club, honestly. I think the Galaxy would have been a good fit, but they did sign Gabriel Peck to the same position. But yeah, that's a good shout. And one final player that I wanted to throw in there, I don't think it's necessarily too realistic just because of the amount of money that it would take. But Karim Benzema, I would like to see him play for the Galaxy. And this is just because they did sign, like I said, I've been mentioning all video. I think Yuri Alberto would make more sense just due to the amount of money they already spent on Gabriel Peck. But the Galaxy, like we've seen, they're no stranger to signing huge names as their DPs. They always do it. David Beckham, Steven Gerrard just come to mind. They've had so many good players over the years. One of the biggest clubs in MLS history, like I said earlier. And just selfishly, I want the dynamic of him against Hugo Lloris in El Tráfico. Because as we all know, Hugo Lloris was the captain of the French World Cup squad and was a huge reason why Benzema ended up getting taken off that squad. Before the 2022 World Cup started. Obviously, they ended up losing in the final. He could have been a big part of that run for them. And I think there's definitely a lot of bad blood there, a lot of bad blood between Galaxy and LAFC, a new rivalry because LAFC are still a very young club. But I think a rivalry like that from the players, a striker versus a goalkeeper, would really help accelerate the rivalry between the clubs. And I think it'd be just something really fun to see. So make that happen. Like I said, to the Saudi League, a lot of the players want to leave. Benzema probably wants to go back to Europe because he is still at that level. But maybe a couple of years down the line, I'd love to see, just selfishly, Benzema come to MLS, play for the Galaxy, take on Hugo Lloris in one of the biggest derbies in the league.
Yeah, throw Valbuena in there too because he was a part of another scandal. But no, honestly, that would be nice. It would be nice. That's a great... people say that MLS is scripted. Listen to this script and sign him. Honestly, that would be great. But the last players that I picked right here are non-flashy players that I think could make for good signings. Novakovic, the guy is stuck in Serie B forever. Always has good seasons, really, apart from when he plays for Venezia. So he is having a good season right now. I think that he would be a good player for the Rapids, for example. I think that although the Rapids, and I respect their transfer window, goals win you games, and they need a forward. I think that he could definitely get goals, definitely better than they have right now. Rafael Navarro, I always thought he was a horrible striker. Somehow he got the move here. I think that another option would be the center back, my first center back on this league, but he wouldn't be a DP. Domagoj Vida, the center back who famously led Croatia. They didn't really lead, but he was their star center back in that World Cup final run that they had. He is at an age where I think he could make the switch. He's very fast still for his age, and playing in Greece, so similar level. Would definitely enjoy it. Any Balkan loves coming to the US too, so again, it'd make a lot of sense there. And I think that he'd be a good option. Some cheap, good options that I think any team, if they have a little bit more creative scouting, could sign. But thank you guys. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for making sure to put your comment down below which DPs you want to see at your club, or what you thought about our options, if you knew these guys or not. We'd love to interact with more of you guys in the comments. We appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We'll see you next time.